it was automatically created by YouTube. Hey, we did it. I don't see video. Oh, no. There it goes. We did it. We're live on YouTube. Go us.
See, that was the problem. Like I couldn't get that far. Or if I did, I had no idea where to find the video to watch. This is why
Oh,
I keep guys like you around.
dude, I have no idea how I did that either. I just kind of pushed buttons and then suddenly we were live on YouTube.
Well, there's this I'm forgetting the name of it, but there's like this law of failure essentially. Like whenever you're doing something, you'll reach a point of failure, but the next time you go to do that thing, you're gonna reach that point in half the time. If you beat the first level, the next time you go to beat that first level and get into the second level, it's going to take you half the time to get through that first level. I think what you did is because you've been streaming on Twitch, you just already had sort of a bit of an intuition and you knew how to guide yourself through that thing. I had to learn the entire system just to turn OBS on and go, well, how do I create broadcast?
Yeah, no, I don't even remember the broadcast process from the first time, but hey, at least we figured it out. I wish I could do simultaneous streams to this and Twitch, but such is life.
I'm over here just fucking yakking away. My dog is just chewing loudly in the background. I apologize.
It's just
Jesus, I had to go. Yeah, I had to go
it's
and
fine.
close. I had to go, close the door and I put a mat up. This is what I'm doing now. If you hear some rustling around, it's just help quiet the reverb. Turns out jujitsu mats are good for two things.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
case, in case anyone needs an amateur tip on how to deaden the reverb in a recording room, as you can tell, we're very professional.
Always. That's why my
Always.
background
Are
is
we on YouTube?
definitely totally real.
Oh my God, I don't want to drink this beer. Did you hear that
YouTube loves
zero?
this.
Oh, I'm not drinking that. That is so flat. There's no pop to that.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't even hear it pop.
Dude, no, that's Bush juice. This one. See, that's what you want. It's all right though, because this one's got a koozie around it, keeping it PG.
Oh, God.
Ooh, excuse me. All right, so are we here? Are we on YouTube
Yeah,
right now?
we're
Are we
here.
cruising?
And I think we even have audio.
Do we have audio? Is
Let me let me double
there
check
anyone
that.
out there that can let us know
All
if we
right,
have
so are
audio?
we here? We definitely have audio. I unmuted it and I heard my own voice right back at me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like everything I hear internally, but it was external this time coming in. It was very disturbing.
Yep.
And now I feel sad for everyone who's ever had to listen to me ever. Dude, I used to be the worst storyteller. And not that I think I'm great at it now, but I'm certainly better than I used to be. Because I would have to provide, like, I didn't have a theory of mind back then. Like, I would have
Yeah.
to provide, I'm sorry, I keep looking over here because this is where the big screen is, but you're right here.
Sorry, man,
Apologies.
I'm adjusting.
I'm not trying to be distracting here.
There we go. All right, let's try
I
something
used to have to provide like so much context because I didn't have the theory of mind to understand that I didn't need to do that.
Yeah, I
And
still do that.
in doing so, I got lost in my own tangents. I almost never really finished a story or closed the loop. And by the end of it, everyone was just really confused and
Yeah.
wondering like, why'd you just drag us through the mud like that?
God, I knew a guy who was so self-focused that when he would tell stories, it was always from his point of view. I knew him for like 5 years, and he'd always told the story about like friend. I forget what it was like in a biking accident or got bit by a rattlesnake or something. Oh no, no, no. He was darker than that. Tried to take his
It's
own life, and like,
she's hold on,
oh
hold
yeah,
on.
oh
I
no,
don't know if it was a bike accident, he got bit by a venomous viper, or if he tried to kill himself. But anyway,
it's all
so it was
intense.
Wednesday.
Yeah, no, it's like this super intense story, and he'd always tell it, and he'd always describe like how he felt during it and his side of it. And then it was only like 5 years later that someone idly mentioned to me, like, I was like, oh yeah, I've heard that story where like this went down, and he was all torn up over it. And they're like, yeah, yeah, thankfully the dude survived. And it dawned on me of like, the dude never told me what happened to the person. It was just how he felt about what happened to the person. Holy, I thought he had died. No, he lived.
I,
Yeah.
what can we learn from that, Colin?
Don't be that self-focused.
I think we can learn from it when one door. No, I don't know. I was gonna have a segue there, and then it just fell apart. Like as soon as I got off on the right foot, I started on the left foot. I just be all, yeah! Y bienvenido de nuevo al podcast de la vida desempleada. I am your host, Carlos, and I'm joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Colin. I'm so confused. We're Spanish now?
Hey,
Did they tariff the English language?
estoy aprendiendo. Dude, tariff the American language. Oh, boy. That is why the syllables have been coming to me a little bit more trickily lately.
Yeah.
Minus all those syllables I just added into that. This is the Unemployable Life Podcast.
Hello. We made it.
We are coming at you with a little bit more of a free-form show today. If you can't tell already. And I would like to start with some follow-up thoughts from last week. We talked about tariffs last week, and that episode will be coming out very soon. The editor's a little backed up. Turns out.
There's pills for that.
Turns out he likes to take on more than he can take. But after talking about the tariffs, I actually had a bit of a realization that they wouldn't bring back manufacturing even if they did deter. Here's the thing. Tariffs wouldn't bring back manufacturing and also bring in revenue at the same time. They can't, because if all the companies bring their business here, they're not importing anything anymore. And Trump of the Donald has floated many times just simply replacing the federal income tax with tariffs. Well, if all of the companies are here, not importing anything, not paying the tariffs, what's going to happen? The federal government's going to go broke again, like it's ever going to get out of debt. And not only that, but Trump's egos, it's going to cause him to double down, claim we're winning, and essentially just the money that was once replaced by tariffs is now replaced by hopes and dreams. And we're going to be faced with uncontrollable inflation in this hypothetical scenario that we're living in.
And it's basically about to start. So this is being recorded on the 1st.
It is starting, actually.
Yeah, and we're
I've already started to notice that they don't have my favorite paper towels at Publix.
Really niche example. I went on to Etsy for some of my favorite stores that I would buy like Hanfu and different things for LARP. Those stores are just gone. They just shut them down. There's no sense in keeping them.
Whoa.
Yep.
That fast.
It was quick. I was like, God damn. I looked at it mid last week and was like, well, there, crap. And now the prices have already doubled.
And these are small stores, I'm imagining. It's a very small niche you're talking about. So you're talking a community that maybe thousands across the country, probably hundreds of thousands, honestly. We're a big country, but still very niche. And so it's small business just going under like that.
Yep. They just pulled their, I mean, there's no point in trying to sell to us at this point. It would be double the cost. We're used to not that. I also saw that when we were doing our initial recording of this one, that was when I was sharing the information about the San Francisco Bay Area dock workers, their layoffs because there's not enough work done. The port is practically empty. Those pictures are now starting to pop up in Oregon and Washington's main intake ports as well. That's really bad. That's those ports provide a lot of the common goods that I think maybe a lot of people think are locally produced, but don't realize we don't really do a lot of that anymore.
No, in fact, if you look on a lot of goods in America, they say assembled in the USA, not made in the USA, because they're assembled here. They're put together here. I used to work for a brief stint, I used to work at a machine shop, and we would get steel in overnight. And that was what they did. I received the parts in, I turfed them off to whatever machine they needed to go to, and the assembler assembled them. These parts came from Taiwan and China for the most part, if I remember right. Definitely China. I'm pretty sure the other was Taiwan. There's two countries specifically that came from. And they were going into Ford. Oh, no, I'm sorry. General Motors and John Deere parts. I worked there for 2 months. It was just to get me into Wisconsin. But Yeah. Assembled in America is not the same as made in America. It's a tricky little marketing tactic, though, to get you to think that you are buying fully made in America bread and butter product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think the unfortunate part too is with a lot of these tariff situations, it's going to reveal how much we do actually rely on other countries, and that that's not necessarily bad. They also rely on
No.
us for things, and that's how it works. We all help each other out. China has a bunch of
Here-
factories and can produce things cheap. We don't.
So here's the dichotomy of the manufacturing stronghold of China
Mm,
and the military stronghold of the world of the US.
yeah.
The only reason the USD hasn't completely collapsed, as we briefly touched on, we kind of jumbled it up. But there, toward the end of last week's episode, we were feeling pretty toasty, and my explanation of the neoliberal world order was quite choppy, and I apologize to anyone who's going to have to watch that in the future or chooses to watch that in the future. I hope no one makes you watch it. Um, but Jesus Christ, where was I going with that? Do 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 do.
uh,
USD military.
yeah.
So the reason the USD hasn't collapsed yet is because we have military bases in countries, and if they divest from the American dollar, we're invaded already. We're there. We are there
We
for like we're Europe's police force largely.
Yeah, and we used to literally be that. That was a thing. We were the police force of South America first, and then Europe. It was a thing. But again, grandfather quite literally told me that one. But the hard part is there's already been some shifts where a lot of countries are now looking at us and saying like, okay, well, we can't rely on the U.S. as a reliable ally. Therefore, we don't need the military bases, the military investiture. We are going to have to stand on our own. That
And what happens when they go to kick out the military bases? I didn't even consider this. What happens when we we what happens when the Trump administration has collapsed the dollar, whether intentionally or unintentionally? Doesn't matter. What happens if that happens and the countries that have a vested stake in our military presence say, take a hike, and then we got to collect our things and leave their tail between our legs and a little bandolier, hop on a hobo train, and sail across the Pacific?
I don't know. I
What
mean,
happens then? What happens then? Because we're in 172 countries,
yeah.
Colin. 172 out of 192
So was
ish,
watching
something like that.
the new Andor season, and it was really disturbing. They described the Gorman people, and the context behind this, I swear, this is related. They described the Gormans as this planet of like they produce like this amazing fabric that like who is anyone has Gorman twill, but they exposed that the Empire in the back end realized that they kind of wanted Gorman for other purposes. So they had a marketing and PR team spread rumors and bullshit about terrorist attacks and how the Gormans killed an imperial inspector when they could have just opened their doors and been inspected like any other good imperial planet, and how they used that to create the illusion of instability so that the rest of society would basically accept that there are tensions starting to rise there. And now they're delving in, I haven't gotten all the way in, but they're delving into like looking to fabricate believable excuses so that the justification of the use of force is natural. It was really fucking creepy to watch because it kind of feels like a lot of the stuff we're experiencing right now.
It,
Really great show though. Highly recommend. Goddamn.
oh my God. I don't know. It might just be another another thing that could start World War III.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a fun game. How will World War III start based on what we know about tariffs?
Trump picks a fight he can't win.
He's already doing that with China. China doesn't give a fuck about
Yep.
us.
I've,
Trump's been on record and in the microphone occasionally lying about the dealings that are going on behind closed doors with China. China just
mm-hmm.
straight up says, no, there's literally nothing going on. Please don't believe this lunatic.
Yep.
We are not making a deal behind closed doors. We will let you know if there is a deal to be made.
Yep.
But right now, you're only 15% of our consumer market. We will live.
Yeah.
In fact, in their own words, they've been here for 5,000 years and they will be here for 5,000 years more. We've only been here since 1776.
And we have a very individualistic mindset when it comes to suffering. So we might line up more with like the French, I would hope at some point, in that we'll push back. But East Asian cultures tend to have this concept of, well, we'll take one for the whole collective team. We can get through this. It's not
That
nearly
is
as bad as what's
actually
about to happen to us.
that's
Go
a well, no, that's a good point. That they are a little bit more communal in their,
on. Hmm.
I guess, social contract. You know,
Yeah.
their social terms and conditions. They are a little bit more communal, and it at least from the outside looking in, based on impressions that we as belligerent Americans have, like Japan. You know, I like when I think of Japan and taking care of the elderly, I think they're taken care of very well. I think they're, oftentimes like in the, like, hey, ma, dad, like move in. I see you're getting old. We're not going to put you in a home or anything like that. Whereas in America, up until like the Great Depression, if you aged out of work, you went into the poor home. You literally went into an old folks orphanage.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe we got off on the wrong foot.
Oh, we did. We glorified our culture. It's like on the note of the Gormans there is propaganda. We believed it. I think you were raised with the same propaganda I was raised with, which was America is the best. We have been this way for a long time. Yeah, we've learned our lessons, but we're better now. But they hid over, like, very few people know and remember that the first unions were essentially fighting small trench warfare campaigns against our
They
own
were.
country.
You don't hear about it because they don't want you like in school as a future worker
Hmm.
to understand the amount of power that you have in numbers against the few that have
Yeah.
the dollars. But it was a small second civil war for like 45 years,
Yeah.
especially in the coal mining towns out east,
Hmm.
like in West Virginia and Virginia and North Carolina, Tennessee. Those guys weren't going to be put down,
No, and like
not
that's how it should
easily.
be. Like, and the amazing
The
thing
Battle
is,
of Blair Mountain
yeah,
was a, yeah,
and I mean, it's
good example.
easy, super easy to spin that. Even I accidentally implied a different intent by just saying like they attacked their own country. No, that's like victimizing speech. It makes the U.S. look like, oh, we're so frail and weak. Help us. When no, really, like the U.S. military was involved in some of this, and at least knew that there was a full-scale armed conflict going on, and didn't really get involved on the good guy side.
No, they got involved on, well, they got involved on behalf of the federal government, who got involved on behalf of the rich guys.
Yeah, they're so important.
Or I'm sorry, the state government. It was often the militias and then the
Yeah,
National Guard, or not the National Guard, but the reserves going out. Not, yeah.
yeah. The
In
federal
any
army.
case,
We only deploy the
but in,
federal army against itself, aka the end of
in
World War
World
One.
War One,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Again, another example of union kind of
Yeah.
informal, a group of people unionizing to go and get the benefits they had fucking fought for, that they had
Yeah.
lived and died for, or saw other people die for. And then
Mm-hmm.
the United States government goes, you know what, they're World War One vets. Ah, we could probably just
Liability.
wipe them off the lawn, right?
Mm-hmm. And we're
You
starting to
know,
see stuff like that again popping up, and it's sad.
yeah, I have a hard time because I still like deep down believe that this is the greatest country that modern world has ever seen. At
Yep.
least I can't think of one better. Um, I can think of a lot worse, but I can think
Mm-hmm.
of better things in worse countries too than
Mm-hmm.
what we have here.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say worse, I mean like just places I would prefer not to live if the U.S. is available. Geographically
Yeah.
speaking, this is one of the most diverse continents on the or countries on the planet.
Yeah.
It's connected
Relatively
to
mild
Canada. You can
weather.
go up there and mess around. It's connected to like you can drive all the way to Terra del Fuego.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to get a little hop over the Panama Canal, but like that's crazy. That's like a 12,000 mile road. It's actually on my bucket list.
Fair.
Right from the top to the bottom of the world.
Yeah. I think the original place where we were before things got so out of balance was absolutely, to your point, like what we grew up with. It was what everyone promised us we were experiencing, and it's not, because we're talking like the 70s up through the 90s, and as the wealthy kept pillaging the economy, things just got worse and worse and worse and worse until now. And it's demoralizing. And then knowing that like things are already hard enough, knowing that these tariffs are coming in, and I actually really beautiful video was done. I should find it on Reddit, but it was a gentleman who voted for Trump. He is MAGA, and somebody was interviewing him and saying like, "What do you think of his first 100 days?" And the guy was like, "Honestly, where are the results?" Like when he was talking about tariffs, I thought he was gonna do them in a not juvenile way. His words, not mine. And he was pointing out that, like, he thought it was going to be a conversation. Hey, China, you've got some tariffs on us. How about we both come to an agreement? Or if I need to protect my country, then I'm going to take these steps. Not just tariff for you, tariff for you, tariff for you. Fuck those poor penguins. They get a tariff. And, like, there's this interesting thing developing where it's like, narcissists flame out, and it's one of the most amazing things to watch, and we're probably going to see that. But the scary part is this narcissist is currently at the head of one of the largest militaries in the world, if not the best military in the world, because to my knowledge that propaganda is true.
To my knowledge, yeah.
We make things
Yeah, to
go
my
boom.
knowledge, like there are other things like China's got some cool stuff. Russia can't even really successfully invade Ukraine at this point. Um, Israel has some really cool stuff, but it's all made by Palantir, which is an
It's
American
from us.
company, or at least it's owned by Americans. And
Mm-hmm.
Palantir, we're going to have to touch on them sometime because that's going to get real
They're
wacky in
taking
Doge
off.
because they're trying to make, and this is not a Palantir segment, but they're trying to make Palantir the singular software for the entire federal government, which means all of the federal government's data will be on Palantir servers and only Palantir servers, not decentralized. They're talking about centralizing all of the Pentagon's data, the federal government's data, as far as like payroll and budgets and who that and that
Okay, they ought to have the
fucking
best cybersecurity team
entitlements
ever.
and royalties, obligations, like all of that just at Peter Thiel's fingertips. He would just love that.
God, all of this instability on top of just now prices are going to go up for things that we probably can't even anticipate. We can use some logic to understand it, but who knows where every single thing comes from in the supply chain? It's gonna
That's,
suck.
oh my God. And in the chaos, companies who don't get their goods imported from China, who don't need to jack their prices up, are going to because their competitors are doing it and
Yeah,
still selling.
yeah. No,
Unless you're Arizona Tea, who held out and still sold like kings throughout
right.
2020 and 2022, whenever that
They're the
super
they're the true
spike in
millennial
inflation.
company, like for democracy.
Man, you know what though? They did. They fucking did. Or I experienced a time slip. When I was living in Southern Illinois, I was an associate manager or something, assistant manager, something like that.
Yeah,
At a, you can tell how much I cared, at a gas station.
yeah.
And I was working overnights, and I went to get something out of the cooler, and I grabbed that, and it said 129 on it. I know for a fact it said
Yeah,
129. I didn't take a picture of it. Well, I sent a snap,
yeah.
but those go away. So I didn't take like a real saved picture of it. No one, even the people I sent that snap to, believes me.
No, we had that in
I was
California.
working overnight, so like I don't know, like weird things happen at the witching hour. That's why it's called the witching hour. It's like 3 and
Yeah.
4 a.m. and it was about that time. Shit happens, man. You
Oh
slip
yeah.
into time streams, and that might have happened. That's a Mandela effect, really. It's what we're. There's a small Mandela effect. I
God.
saw Arizona tea at 129 in
I think
2022.
in California, I think we had some cans that were printed where it had like the max amount they could charge you with taxes and stuff, so that you could call out any stores that charged more.
Uh,
I think. At least that's how it was explained to me, because I definitely remember it was like a little green
because
tag
yeah,
up at the top that said like
oh yeah, it's right
129.
there. It's embossed on the label. You can't
Mm-hmm.
get around it.
Yeah, but yeah, God no, I'm not ready for this. I mean, candidly, my shopping plan for tomorrow is I'm gonna go stock up on rice and potatoes and some things, and just be ready just in case. Cause
I might legit just go buy some dirt and some seeds
oh yeah,
and just fucking figure it out.
yeah, I'm trying
Just
to get
fucking
my
figure it
garden
out.
beds online because Jesus Christ, it's coming. There's a
One
coffee shop in town that had to announce that they're really like 1.5, 1.7xing their prices on certain things I was like, what the hell is the coffee shop getting nailed for? Fucking coffee beans from South America, because we're in a trade war with the whole goddamn world.
Yeah, coffee is one of my favorite things on the face of the planet, and that was one of the first things I thought of because, like you just said, it's all imported except for the stuff you get from Hawaii. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of that, so you got to get it from South America, you got to get it from Ethiopia, and you got to get it from China. In fact, peas also almost exclusively come from China because of the high altitude and the humidity, which is
Hmm.
uh, unique to various areas of China.
Yeah.
You know, usually when you get higher in the altitude, you get more dry.
Yeah. Damn. No, it's.
And here's a little fun fact about coffee beans. If you're ever like stuck going for like low ground, high ground, if you ever get confused by that,
Yeah.
low ground coffee will have more caffeine in it than high ground coffee. So if you get like high
Huh.
altitude coffee, mountain coffee, or whatever, it'll have less caffeine. The reason is caffeine is a deterrent for insects, and at lower altitudes, there's more insects to deter.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Huh.
so knock that one on your
Knowledge
little
list.
dealio.
Uh,
One last little thought though on the tariff afterthought here.
uh-huh.
Um, as it sits right now, the average factory worker in the United States makes about $35,000 a year. The average salary in the United States is $64,000 a year, just across the board. So just put that in perspective.
Uh-huh.
They will no longer, they will never be able to attract the talent they need in order to maintain production, causing an increased demand as the supply is squeezed, causing more overtime for underpaid factory workers and even more upward wealth transfer, and then eventually a revolution. Like
Yeah.
I don't see any way that you're going to bring because you're going to have to bring supply chains. We talked about that last week, so I'm not going to reiterate too hard. But supply chain management alone is going to be $1 trillion endeavor just
Yeah.
to get like something of an infrastructure here that can keep all of our basic goods made or basic needs met, all of
Uh-huh.
our basic goods made and stocked, and all of our roads and dams kept up because all of those are very important. And then we still have to keep up with weapons manufacturing and stuff. Like we don't have the manpower to manufacture the stuff we have now because we have
Yeah.
gone out of our way as a nation since 1944, since we started exporting our dollars
Yep.
and in favor of importing goods.
Yeah.
We've gone out of our way to devalue American manufacturing to the point where the average factory worker in the United States makes $35,000 a year. The average salary in the United States is $64,000 a year.
Yep. Yeah.
How the fuck are you going to attract people to that?
What's even worse too is that like the meta strategy doesn't even make sense. I have heard lots of people they say this with a Musk and Trump, and it's oh they've got a strategy. Da, 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 da. And I'm like oh okay okay. So let me just point out this part. To your point, we've been exporting the dollar for a while since the 40s, since we won World War II and became the big guy on the block who could knock everyone else out. That's when we started also devaluing American labor in general, which includes services and things that supposedly made our economy amazing and great. So there are currently bragging LinkedIn posts about how, a salesperson in the US costs triple digit figures and you can just get one straight out of South Africa who sounds like an American for, 10-20% of the cost. So there again, you're now devaluing your own labor. No one calls this out. No one hates it except for kind of like a select few who are aware that it's going on and it's not morally appropriate. ICE raids a place and gets rid of a bunch of illegal workers. Why isn't that CEO answering to why their business has failed and has so many illegal workers? He just keeps going and collects his check, and oh no, I guess we have to hire someone else. But point being, all of this stuff leaves the US. We import so much to produce and sell in this country that basically the brilliant elite have spent all this time making sure that they're going to have to import shit in, which is going to hurt them. They're not going to let that happen, so they're going to jack the prices up. But it's going to go up so high, it's still going to come back to hurt them.
Have you ever heard the term exporting inflation?
No. It's like an
You kind of danced
Ouroboros.
around it a little bit there without knowing it, I'm sure. But
Mm.
so essentially, exporting inflation is tariff hawks' way of going, well, I shouldn't classify them as tariff hawks. It's not, that's a misgeneralization. But anyway, some people will use the term exporting inflation as a way to essentially justify why U.S. manufacturing wages have been kept so low on average over the last 70 years. And the idea is that we send out our valuable American dollars for less expensive imported goods,
Hmm.
because if we kept those American dollars in our country, like I just said, we would have to jack the price up for each American factory worker per hour.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have to be paid a more living wage, because now there would be an actual, like an actual enough of them to make a fuss, and
Yeah.
that enough of them that know enough to make a fuss. Unfortunately, one of the more common and perhaps moreover more true, largely, stereotypes about the factory worker is that they are uneducated
Oh God. Yeah.
and therefore don't know their rights, don't know how to act upon those rights and all that, which is why I find myself here, because I am a career factory worker, very clearly not uneducated.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like a responsibility to those people because I give a damn about them, because
Yeah.
they've given a damn about me at times they didn't need to. We've worked thousands of hours of overtime together. We've had blisters and bloody knuckles. We've said swear
Yeah.
words. We've butted heads together. Like, these are my brothers and sisters, man. Like, you're fucking with an entire population here.
Hmm.
And when you when you export inflation, when you put like, it's a derogatory term, like I take offense to that,
Hmm.
because it's another way of saying this is just how we suppress wages of factory workers. That's how
Yeah.
I see that. And I would love for someone to come on and prove me wrong. Like, if anyone out there knows anyone that can prove me wrong, please,
Yeah.
please do. I need to be wrong.
Yeah. Because it would be easier in this case if we were wrong. Like that's the thing on it. And then on that note too, like that same vitriol and like, yeah, these are the people I'm gonna work with, and I will fucking stab someone if they try to mess with them. That intensity, I'm sure YouTube's gonna love that. But that intensity is something that shouldn't just stop at factory workers, because on the tech side, most people think that there are some of those tech companies where they just make so much gosh darn money. And it's like, I don't even, you guys can't even explain what you do. How are you making this? But the rest of us who are in the more normal side of the industry, we've been fighting wage suppression, devaluation of our labor, exporting our labor to other countries. Like it's the same thing. The problem is not the
Beat by
industry.
beat.
The problem is the people who run the businesses that tend to get weirdly sociopathic after a certain point.
But they do a hell of a job of pitting us against each other. Before we started this, we've talked about this off and on. We'll continue to talk about it as the show goes on. But before we started this, like I had like kind of the impression that most factory workers have of tech workers,
Yeah.
exactly like you just said.
Yeah.
I imagine someone working at Twitter in 2016, just playing ping pong and taking naps and having jacuzzi hand jobs or something. I have no
Yeah.
idea what they did there, but it clearly wasn't a whole lot of work if you listen to Musk. And
Yeah.
doing this like really made me realize exactly what you just said. Like, we are all in the
Yeah.
same shit.
Yeah.
We are all living the same story, but the details are different.
Mm-hmm.
But the plot is the same. The names are different, but the plot is the same.
Yeah.
The business is different, but the plot, like, you get
Oh
it.
yeah.
Like the fucking fundamentals of all of this is the same. So
Yeah.
what is the common denominator? It's people in power. And if you really want to trace it back far enough, it's probably got something to do with Vanguard and BlackRock.
God, yeah. Yeah. I mean, unmitigated capitalism is a scary thing. It empowers people who have more money than most nations to make decisions for us, and that's my vitriol towards Musk. Like, we didn't elect you. What the heck, my dude?
Do you want to hear a little plot twist about unfettered capitalism?
Ooh.
So the companies back to the tariff hawks, they kept repeating that Apple would bring its factories stateside. Do you want to know what Apple did? Um,
The opposite?
they moved to India after Indonesia required them to pay more than $1 billion that Apple had already offered to invest in the country. Indonesia wanted more than that. I can't say they're wrong for that. I would probably put pressure on Apple too.
Yeah.
Being $1 trillion company and all, and being Indonesia is small and probably relatively impoverished. I don't know, but I just Imagine.
Big difference in the haves and the have-nots. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly. I was thinking like a Bali scenario, kind of like you got the people who live there, but you got the people who fucking live there,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
And they just up and went next door, dude. Like
Mm-hmm.
China's right next door to India. In fact, China and India have a border that they go to war on like
Constantly.
every day. They literally every day. But they go to war with sticks and stones because if they use guns, it's in like some kind of treaty they have. If they use guns, they're afraid it's going to escalate immediately into a nuclear war.
Yep.
Meanwhile, right above China, Russia is just
Yeah. Yep.
molesting the Ukraine.
Yup. No,
I'm
it's
just like, I'm like, you have a primeval like sticks and stones actual fight happening in a canyon over here, and then you have potential nuclear warfare 1,200 miles away.
yep.
I don't know. Maybe just pull out a gun and end the fucking war already. God.
God, no,
And the
it's a
crazy thing
little.
is, like, people actually die in sticks and stone war
Oh
over there in
yeah.
India and China.
Oh yeah. You
Ah.
can get violent with that. That's how we invented war.
And they're still
Ah,
doing it in 2025.
yeah.
It's just absolutely insane.
It's a lot of the stuff that helps you realize, like, I don't. To your point too, where there's stereotypes. I knew tech workers who would be like, well, we may not make as much, but one day we're going to get ours, the impoverished millionaire syndrome. And then they would shit talk other industries and be like, well, I would never work manufacturing. I don't know about that. I would never work at a McDonald's. And it's like, I grew up with a grandfather who told me flat out, if he lost his good job running tractors, he would be flipping burgers to keep his wife going. Like, there's a piece in this of like, it's so easy to come against each other, and figuring out how to work together is tricky because we have preconceived notions. And when people challenge them, we feel offended and want to protect that. I don't think conservatives are stupid. I grew up with conservative family members. Yes, there are a couple who are special, a couple dingbats, but most of them were all very well educated in their responsible areas. It's just that for some reason, as a society, we shifted from American labor is iron and steel and we do things the right way to, oh, you work contractors. Uh, and that's bullshit. Like, we need to support all of our workers. If nurses go on strike because they're not getting enough money, we don't shit talk them. We go, heck yes, how can we help you? If doctors go on
Some
strike for it,
sister unions will go on strike too.
yeah, oh yeah, and that's how it should be. Like, we should just be joining these things, and it's try to keep it as peaceful as possible always.
I got a nice little punctuation to this tariff talk here.
Yeah, yeah.
There are companies that are sticking it back to Trump and JD Vance. Um, Amazon is posting the tariff prices on their sites. Trump and
Oh,
his
didn't they back down?
administration have moved to quickly be hostile toward Mr.
Yeah,
Bezos.
they're pissed.
Uh, Never thought I'd say this, but go Amazon. I mean, we're talking unions here, so anyway, moving on. Uh, Apple is just moving next door from China to India. We covered that. UPS. This is
Oh
what I
yeah,
wanted to touch on real quick. Just laid off 20,000 people because of and Amazon's going to end up laying off at least that two drivers and warehouse workers
yeah,
for sure, and it's only going to go work.
yeah.
So I wanted to touch on the UPS one real quick, just because they're laid off 20,000 people, dude. 20,000. You have to imagine
That's a
probably,
city.
let's say half of them. Half of them probably had families.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that's at least three people. I mean, you're looking at a minimum of 50,000 people that are immediately impacted by this.
Yeah,
Just this.
yeah.
The good news is, if there is any silver lining at all, UPS like 4 years ago got that big union contract. At least their drivers did. Their warehousers, didn't get shit. But
Mm-hmm.
their drivers got that big union contract where it was $180,000 a year. Blah blah blah. Dude, I was living in Southern Illinois at the time, and I would see wives driving like big dumb Chevys with a bumper sticker that says "My husband works for UPS," and I was just like, "Fucking
Good for you.
cool."
Yeah, we have to let go of that like innate competitive urge to be like, I don't have that. How dare you have it? And instead be like, dang, good for you. How can you help me do that now? You know?
Oh, Hermano, man, I was talking about that with the wife the other day. Like, I didn't really learn to appreciate cool things
Hmm?
until I'd already achieved what I had deemed a level of success. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
success to me was just moving and living under a palm tree. Something
Yeah.
I've wanted to do since I was knee high to a grasshopper, couldn't get out of my head. I finally had it. And that to me was success. So now when I see a Lamborghini, I don't go, fuck you. I go, damn, 12 cylinders?
Right.
Bro,
Like, good for
vroom,
you.
vroom, get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like I'm happy for that. I'm happy that it exists because it brought me a little bit of joy, and it's joy that I was rejecting because I hadn't achieved whatever success that I needed to appreciate other people's success.
Yeah.
Achieve enough success to blow past resentment and go, oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And success is what you make it to a degree, but we should all be guaranteed survival because this is an interesting quote that I heard that I just it resonated so true of we're the richest nation in the world. We need to stop acting like a victim.
Do you
Hear
want to
the
end it
people
there,
sing.
or do you want to go on to the next topic? This one is totally up to you. For anyone
Let's
watching, life has been very, very crazy for everyone here at the Unemployable Life. So this
yeah,
may be a shorter night than most. We usually go until 9:30. We had two topics lined up, ready to go, but I'll let
it's been a
Colin make the
week.
next call.
It's been a week. I'm down. If, I think a good transition is it's interesting to look at this from the standpoint of Gen Z entering this burning dumpster.
Oh my God, dude. I actually entered in the workforce, in the tax paying workforce. I was working for cash for farmers since I was like 13 or something,
Yeah.
but entered into the workforce in the factories when I was 18 in 2008.
Yep.
That was awesome. Yeah, that was super cool being paid 9.25 to weld. I was a welder making 9.25 an hour, not $125, $9.25 per hour, dude. I was cashing my check at the fucking liquor store.
Oh God, yeah, yep. On my
Dude, I
first,
was at I remember one time it was at the time the biggest check I had ever gotten. It was like $614.
yeah,
And it was because it had an attendance bonus. It was like the 1 month that I made it there on time every day. And some kind of production bonus, which they actually gave production bonuses at that
yeah,
time, but they ended up taking it away shortly after. It didn't matter. It really didn't matter because you only made like $11 an hour with all those bonuses added onto it. But the overtime is really where they killed you.
yeah,
Dude, I was bringing home $500 a week while making 9.25 an hour.
yep, yep.
And I would go in and like slide slide the cashier my check, and she'd be like, all right, can I get this cash? And she's just like, oh wow, where do you work? I'm like, stop it. I was 18, I was just like, oh, stop it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh no,
if you really want to know though, I'll tell you.
my first hotel job was a ritzy hotel, super like fancy up class, and I was like, I just came straight off from a ranch, like pounding fence posts, and I was like, man, I made it. I'm making 14.50 an hour. I'm doing
Hell yeah.
good. But then I look back on it and think on it and go, hold on. The owner of that hotel was a millionaire. That hotel was his plaything in town that he got because his wife liked it and he needed a place for his friends to stay. There was no real excuse that he couldn't have paid us all an actual living wage because even 14.50 back then was like one paycheck goes to rent, then the other half of the next paycheck is food, and then you skimp and save that. I had like 80 extra dollars each month to hold on to.
Well, $14 an hour hasn't been worth a damn in California since like 1990.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's above minimum wage, like, and it's
I mean, la di da, so is the cost of living.
yeah, yeah, and I like we had a much better scenario than Gen Z. And when I think
Yeah.
about it too, there's this interesting thing. You know how millennials were given shit of like, millennials don't know how to do shit. They don't know how to change their tires, know how to do it, know how to change their oil, know how to do it. Like, people would shit on them for that.
All the time.
Technically, at an aggregate, it's pretty true. Like, there's a guy on a certain very number one famous world adult website place. Hint, hint. I can't say
Johnny
it.
Sins.
Yeah, sure. It
Corn cob.
rhymes with horn pub. But
This is a really corny pub joke.
right, but there's a guy on there who just basically puts out like, "I'm a dad. I will teach you all the things your dad didn't teach you." So yeah,
Oh
there is a
yeah,
degradation
I follow him.
of knowledge. Now imagine the generation that didn't get to learn all of these things because the previous generation was starting to struggle and figuring their own stuff out. Taught Gen Z.
I have actually encountered a few articles lately talking about how Gen Z men are choosing trades.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's smart.
Yeah, I found that very interesting because I don't mean trades as in like they're going into the assembly line. I mean trades as
Mm-hmm.
in like they're going to weld or they're
Yep.
going to be a carpenter
Or a
or a pipe
lineman.
fitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing something like that,
Yeah.
and I just thought that was awesome because that's the infrastructure work that like you're not gonna be able to just outsource that to AI right away.
Yeah.
Maybe
Come on.
probably ever, maybe ever. I have no idea where this AI thing is gonna go, but I'm just gonna say right now, probably not gonna be able to do it for a long time.
Yeah.
Those trades jobs, as long as you're willing to swing a hammer, you will never be out of work.
Yeah. And this is actually, I think this is a really cool part. So when I first started hearing about Gen Z, it was just like everyone. Like, I was in an office space when they started to leak into existence. And I remember the first few ones showed up, and like, yeah, I heard the phrase skibbity and was like, bless you? Are you okay?
Yeah, but
But,
we sounded half
oh,
hearted too, so
dude, you want to take a lunch break? I know a righteous place down the way. That is still a thing in San Diego in some circles. But yeah, no, so it's like, I saw them from the same lens that a lot of people did of like, okay, weird work culture. You can't talk to people like that. And now I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, you know what? No one's gonna pay you what you're actually worth. Do whatever you want. You tell them
that's the
off.
thing. Oh my God, that's the thing is like I've pretty quickly found out that no one's actually going to pay me what I'm worth. So if I want to be broke, I'm going to be broke on my own terms.
Yeah,
I'm not going to be broke and like go and serve some other master. I'm going to be broke and serve my own damn self.
yeah, yeah. And
And
there's
then
so much of that.
there's a rise of business startups too,
Mhm.
not in tech per se, just across the
Yeah,
board. And they're seeing this as a sign of a bad economy because the jobs are so scarce. Everyone's just like, I guess I'm just going to start
so
my own
start my own fucking
fucking business
business.
then and sell to all of the other people who are working.
So my literal example, and I can talk with some decent authority, knock on wood that I don't lose my luck on this, is I have spent years working for companies, and it is my job to think creatively. I am a marketer in a technical marketing role, not a creative. But what makes me different is I follow the creative side of it too, because it was interesting, it was a challenge. And I remember pointing out things as time went on. Hey, boss, if we did this, it would make us money and it would help people feel good. And maybe we could all afford those raises. And I get pushed out of the company for even daring to think about that. But I've watched so many companies struggle with internal culture, treating their people well, high turnover rates. They always, oh my God, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? I realized there was no point in just sitting there and dealing with it. And I can't really interview anymore because as soon as somebody's in an interview and is like, Colin, tell me about a time that you saved an important client. You're like, no, I have like 8 years of luxury hospitality experience. You don't need to ask me that question unless you're daft. I'm not going to
It's a
tell you
corporate
that.
mandate usually.
Oh, yeah. I'm so
Yeah,
sick of it.
it's just for the paperwork.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and it's the bullshit getting to know you. When I would do interviews in Hotel
Yeah.
Land, it was like, hey, I saw your resume, clarifying question, like I just noticed a typo here. Is what date were you there from? Cool. All right, tell me about yourself. What do you do for fun? What do you like to do? Are you okay working in teams? You prefer to be alone? Just tell me about you. Are you going to be a good culture fit? And those were the better fits than the ones where you did the bullshit stuff. And don't even get me started on the
Always,
the fake interview
always.
processes now and how like there's some of these things where they're looking for something to hold you accountable for, and I swear it's a test to decide if they can abuse you or not. And I'm not afraid of anyone. I'm done with those eras. Like, no, sir, I
That's
know I did
insane.
nothing
Like
wrong.
those are insane stakes to go up against entering the workforce as a
Mm-hmm.
18, 20, 23-year old. Like
Yeah, it's an
you're going up against like you've never interviewed before in your life. Like I've gotten pretty good at fucking interviews because I've been in 100 of them in my life
yeah,
because I've had the time to do it. They haven't. So like these They're going into interviews that are completely alien to you, but they're also completely alien to everyone older than you because they've never done text interviews. They've never done
Yeah.
like pre-question, like pre-planned you know, those interviews where like they just send you an email and they're like, here's 7 questions, answer them to the best of your abilities and send them back and we'll get you like
Yeah.
we never had to do that. In fact, like
Oh.
I never once had okay, I had to take tests,
Yeah.
but it was only after the interview, like the first interview, it was like second round interview kind of thing.
Yeah.
Second round interview, you take the test just to prove that you're capable of doing math, basically, and reading a tape measure. And then
Yeah.
I was on my way.
Fork.
Work, 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 work. Now we got them all going.
But yeah, no, to the test point and stuff too. I just thought of a great thing. So something that's really common in marketing world is you apply for a marketing role. Say I'm interviewing you. I'm the scumbag guy. I go, hey, Charles, I'm really interested in you doing this role, but what I'd really like to see is the quality of your work. So if you could provide like a 6 month pitch and plan of what you want to do when you start this role.
Free work.
Yep. Imagine if I did that to you on a factory line instead and was like, hey, Charles, I really want to hire you for the supervisory role, but I'm going to need you to pitch me a plan of how you're going to reorganize the team so that it works more efficiently and we condense our overtime hours. No, that's work. And Gen Z has this ability where, like, when I first started hearing stuff with that, I was taught, and I'm going to guess it was probably the same for you and a lot of other people, I was taught, you go the distance. You prove you got gumption, you give 110%. You go, you go, you go, you go. I do that with my private clients because I care about them, I'm connected to them, and I actually care about seeing their businesses grow. But for an employer, I've never had an employer actually take care of me. Heck no. And Gen
Actually,
Z
you
will
know
just
what?
call it out.
I have more of a Gen Z approach to work than I think most people do. And it's mostly because
Cool.
when I was younger, I watched both my parents work a ton of hours, and my
Mm-hmm.
dad instilled in me at a young age. He repeated to me at a young age, never allow your job to make you feel bad for taking a day off. So I
Yeah.
haven't ever.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I'm a little bit more disloyal. Disloyal is not the right word because it's not that I'm disloyal. It's just that it's misplaced loyalty. I
Yeah.
am loyal to myself, my ability to live comfortably. I am
Yep.
not loyal to a company. I've never been loyal to a company. The company that has treated me the best, ironically, was DuPont. And I gave them 30 days notice when I quit, and they fired me the next day.
Yep. Yep.
So they treated me the best until the moment I said, "Yo, I'm giving you 30 days," and they're just like, "Well, we don't fucking need you anymore. There's 13 people waiting to interview for your exact spot," and there were.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it. It was a
Yeah.
fantastic job to have. If you're going to have a job, that's not a bad one to have.
Yeah. But like, there's so few reasons to accept this shit from the work world. Like, it should be a
So
happy environment to be efficient.
check this out. This is a great time to insert
Oh
this.
heck yeah.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. Back it up just a little bit. Let me know if you can hear it fine.
Everything into it. I have felt in the past when I've had to give a name and have someone laid off that I've been disloyal
You
to
hear
that person.
Yeah.
It's painful.
I think Gen Z
Yes, here.
looks at layoffs as a lot more of an evil. Why can't that company be loyal to these employees? And I think boomers look at layoffs as we've got a business to run. If we're not solvent, if we don't get our expenses under control, we're not going to be around to allow anybody to have any jobs.
Job security is a hard and scary thing that a lot of people go through. Your job can now be taken over by AI. There is just no guarantee that your position is safe. I don't think people even have the opportunity to be loyal to a company if they even wanted to. Do you?
Yeah. 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 That.
When she said that, after old boy was like, "Well, sometimes it's just running a business. It's not about layoffs. It's just running a business." And then she said that, and I was like,
That.
"The answer is right in the same room, buddy."
Hmm. Yeah, and they come from a different era, literally. The boomer generation looks at it. Back
Literally.
then, my dad, who's a Gen Xer, says it to me. Ah, it's just a layoff. You're gonna recover. Actually, no. Technically, by most people's standards, I did not recover. I had to start my own business, And that was not a zippity doo dah, I would love to do this. It was, if I do not do this, I lose everything that I have spent my entire life working for. And there's no guarantee of success. Back then, it was a little different. There's a layoff, well, there's another sector hiring. We were the strongest goddamn economy in the world. We were doing really well. Statistically speaking, most people could bounce back. It's not that way anymore. And even before AI, it wasn't because of AI. It wasn't because of a different generations. It was because the people in power have no loyalty to their employees.
And before AI, it was immigrants. Let's
Yeah.
be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
the stuff you're hearing about, well, AI is coming for your jobs. 10 years ago, it was,
Immigrants are coming.
I mean, South Park had a whole thing. They took our jobs.
Mhm.
Come on.
Yeah.
Pull your heads out of sand.
I really enjoyed this. I was talking to my friend who lives in Texas, and I lived in Northern California at the time, and I was giving him shit for living in prize crop, farm crop. What is it called?
Yeah.
Money crop.
Cash crop.
Cash crop. Yeah, lived in a cash crop society. Like I was like, you know, you're still just like the South was during the Civil War. And he was like, yeah, remind me again where you live. And I was like, wine country. And he's like, okay. And what do you export? Well, world-class wine. He's like, and who works the fields? Oh. And that was a humbling moment. I needed that to happen to realize it, because I grew up differently. And
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I worked in the fields with those guys. I was paid the same as much as they were because I was a teen and, you know, not supposed to be working. But I never once pieced it together that, like, yeah, there's always been an out. There's always been an excuse to say, we don't need to pay you more. It's those illegal immigrants. They're taking your jobs. No, it's you. You're hiring said illegal immigrants because they will work for you for dirt cheap.
And other countries are not taking our jobs. Apple is sending them out. IBM is sending them out. John Deere,
Yes.
Caterpillar,
Yeah.
Ford, all sending them out. Blue collar companies are sending them out.
Yep.
Countries aren't taking them. We're shipping them.
Yeah.
American-owned companies are choosing to not employ American workers, and that's insane. And these
It's
people are coming into a world where these Gen Zers are coming into a world where, you know, ghost jobs, fake jobs, quiet firing, and like all of these things exist. All of the things we just talked about exist, and they're still expected to remain loyal in some way, in some fashion.
The odds are entirely stacked against them.
What? So there's another point here. I'll get to the second point in a minute. I think because I want to kind of hang on this loyalty bit for a minute, because there is something actually I think very important here. It's a point that I've been getting hung up on for like the last couple of months off and on at my own job. And that is, my employers have never gone out of their way. Most of the time, most employers that I've had have never gone out of their way to encourage loyalty from me. They've never gone out of my way to make me feel like they have my best interest in mind, to make me feel like I'm being valued repeatedly, to make it feel like they are worth the buy-in. I'll give you a prime example. My operations manager, I've worked there for a year and 8 or 9 months, something like that. I still don't know his last name.
Yeah.
He expects me to do favors for him, and I don't do them. And he gets all like kind of snippy with me, and I'm like, I don't know you, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know you, and this job is immediately replaceable. Most jobs are. If you're a server or bartender, if you're a salesman or a assembly line worker, which is 80% of fucking work in America.
Yeah.
Your job is immediately replaceable. And I don't mean you, well, unfortunately, the company sees you as replaceable, but you can immediately replace your job with another job exactly like it right next door. That's what I mean.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the first sign of this was that I remember when I started doing this, a lot of my friends were like, wow, you cannot be trusted as an employee. And I was like, no, in hospitality where I'm at, if you stay, you're not going to get paid well. They'll fight you on the raises every year. So you just bounce across the street, and then you bounce across the street, then you bounce across the street. And that's how I would get a $2 raise every year and a half or so, just bump, bouncing up.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a very common thing now. We're hitting kind of a point, and I kind of full connect this. I have this fear and concern that with tariffs, we're now actually approaching the area where really the fundamental thing is broken. Whatever was keeping us just kind of chugging along, which the illusion of grandeur that the United States has and is holding on to, I think it's about to snap. And the young generations have no reason to participate in our economy the way that we did. We shit down their throats.
Not really, no, do it. Like there are reasons in that without I'll say us because we are not Gen Z, but I'm not really including us. You know what I mean? Like without the grand society as a whole, the economy as a whole, like they have no access to stability. They have no access to wealth. They have no access to possibility unless they completely reject all of it, in which case they're the most free of any of us because they're not bound down by these things. But then I don't know how they're going to achieve the things that they want to achieve. This is actually a great opportunity to bring up my second point I was going to bring up earlier.
Yeah.
So give me one moment to re-share my screen because, and before I do, I want to preface it with, it's just a little bit further. It's in the same video, a few minutes ahead. And this fits in with what we're talking about because to your point, no, they really have no reason to abide by our system. They're young enough, they can bounce back from almost anything financially right now. So they can sort of just fucking do whatever they want. Yeah. However, because I have only ever heard of Gen Z's work ethic and job search trends and Gen Z's like just work habits as a whole from people who weren't Gen Z. Yes. So this is what led me down to this. I was like, I just really need to hear it from someone who's 22. That's what I need to hear. So here we go again. Just another couple of seconds just to make sure, because I never know if I'm sharing this right, so I just want to make sure the audio is good.
They get the recognition that they deserve, not only from their boss, but from their boss's boss and their peers. It is huge.
Just recognition or just making that known and nothing beyond that almost doesn't really mean much to me. If I'm looking at this company and let's say that project I did made all this money to them, like I would almost want to see like a little piece of that.
One of the challenges with money is it is so short term. So if somebody comes and says, hey, here's $100 for that project that you completed, or $1,000, whatever it is, you're pretty happy, but you're happy for about a week and then you spent the money and you've kind of forgotten about that. I think regular recognition where inside you know my boss values what I do, he or she values the contribution that I make. I think that's something that creates a whole lot more loyalty between a company and an employee, kind of going back.
So yeah, I think they were both right.
I think so. And in their era, like what flabbergasted me is that that gentleman is applying rose-colored glasses to the modern era. Modern era is not the same as when he was coming up. Because I absolutely remember, like, there were certain careers that commanded respect. And I could totally see how you'd be like,
yeah, a banker, you know, like there was there was the old adage that like the banker was the only man in hands with or the only man in town with soft hands.
Yeah,
you couldn't trust anyone, but you can't trust a man with soft hands. Like there's a lot of like, and I make a lot of soft-handed references myself too because I affiliate soft hands with someone who doesn't work hard.
Yeah,
it's not that I affiliate with soft hands with someone who works in tech who probably doesn't have calluses, right? Like
similar concept.
That's not the same thing. It's
don't trust a man with shiny shoes. Yeah,
especially if he's in a wheelchair.
God, yeah, no, that lens being applied to the modern era, I think that's the biggest thing, because I've seen it before where people are like, God, Gen Z's, they're just lazy, they don't care, they're idiotic, they don't know what they're doing. It's like, well, okay, so first of all, we all had to learn from someone, didn't we? And if we failed to convey that down to the next generation, that's on us. Blame flows upwards in successful organizations. On top of that, they're also just willing to call people out and say, like, that's fucking stupid. Don't do it that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not getting paid for this. One of my favorites was, I know a few guys who worked at a Burger King. They were Gen Zers. And they were not told that they needed to clean the toilet. And someone destroyed the bathroom. And they opened the door and were like, fire me. Like,
yeah,
I'm not cleaning up Biohazard. And then I mean, here's an interesting one. So the way this ends up breaking down is that when the Gen Zers run the place, I've been in there, it's absolute chaos. Like, don't get me wrong, my inner corporate manager is like, holy shit, y'all could get fired in any second if they check the cameras. But the place works and it's fun to go to. And I hate Burger King. But they also fired one of the boys, and he stood up for himself, rightfully so. He requested a day off 3 months in advance. The manager guaranteed it. He kept reminding her all the way up through it. The day came, and she scheduled him. And he was like, nope, we had this conversation. I will not be in. And she was like, well, you need to be a team player. You cannot act like this. Gen Xer, unfortunately, kind of corrupted by things. And a supervisor called in and went, hey, can you come in still? Like, we have you scheduled. And he was like, no, talk to the manager. I told her. And then they kept pushing it, and he finally snapped on them. In my living room, he cussed them out and was like, I'm not going to come in my goddamn fucking day off because I requested out 3 months in advance. You know darn well you can handle it. There is someone there to cover my shift. This is unacceptable. If you want to fire me, fire me. And then they did. I think he wins.
There's two things to that. He won spiritually, and he won points in the street.
Yeah.
But Gen Z is overwhelmingly still living at home. So there's a trade-off to this sort of like Diogenes sort of approach to work and society that they're taking, where they're almost 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I totally get that because I'm 1 foot out in every single 9 to 5 I've ever had. I've never been 2 feet in. Never, because of everything we just spoke about.
I regret it every time.
So this is where I resonate with Gen Z's attitude toward the apathy toward work, where like, fire me. Like I just said, like my job is infinitely replaceable. That job is infinitely replaceable.
Yeah.
Fucking fire me, dude. I'll go across the street, and by the end of the day, I'll have a start date. It doesn't matter. And I'm sure he was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah. And they're not paying him enough for it to be a threat either.
And that is something that I wish more people would understand, is that when you don't make enough to save, there's no point in trying. When you don't make enough to save, you might as well just spend everything. Oh, it's the only way you're going to get any little bit of dopamine out of your paycheck. Just fucking buy that 12-pack. That $9 that you save for 52 weeks, you're going to have $400, dude. Like,
and one emergency takes it away. You may as well be happy.
That's for a moment, at the very least. And well, that's another thing too. Actually, is Gen Z, not reported by Gen Z, but by other various means, is they're drinking less, like a lot less.
Yeah, significantly less. And
they're vaping more.
Yeah, there's
they're
always
drinking
something.
less.
And there's a definite THC increase. I mean, I'm part of that in a different way, but
yeah.
I've seen 3 different models for dealing with the economy from like Run LARP group, lots of Gen Zers in it. And if the economy was better and they all had living wages, technically my part-time job would be this LARP field. But out of like 30 some odd people, only a few can pay. And only every now and then. And I never insist on anything because it's not appropriate. And then I would never have anyone here. And like the 3 models I've seen is the scary obsessive saving person who's almost like violent with others, of like, well, you need to save this or else everything will go wrong, and I'm better than you because I can do it. That's a trauma response. I've seen the middle of the line of like, I'm just eking by, I'm just trying to chill, maybe one day I'll be lucky and I'll get a raise. And that's kind of like the more common one, but everyone kind of has that sad deadness behind their eyes when it comes to this topic.
Yeah, kind of the gray in their face.
Yeah, where they're like, holding on to hope. And then I have the far end of the spectrum, which you described, which is the, fuck it, we ballin'. Like, I know a kid who gets money and he's like, I'm going to buy my friend a gift, I'm going to buy you a gift. And I realized, like, at first I was like, dude, this is so irresponsible. What are you doing? And then exactly this conversation was like, it is far more socially valuable for you to treat your friends well so that they can do things with you when you're not doing well. Holy shit.
Yeah. And dude, growing up in a small town where I grew up in a town of 300 people, the nearest stoplight was 15 miles away. The nearest Walmart was 12 miles away. Like it was, it was the largest county in Illinois by square mileage. Yeah. And they produced per capita the most bushels of corn out of any county in the country the year I graduated high school. To give you any kind of perspective around what kind of people I grew up with.
Yeah. Damn.
And fuck, where was I going with that? Um,
The spend it all mentality.
so we didn't have a whole lot of job opportunity around us, and I,
Yeah.
for better or worse, was often employed, but also for better or worse, really wanted all my friends to have a good time
Yeah.
because I wasn't going to be the only one having a good time. I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? I just filled up the tank. Gas is like 4.70 a gallon. Driving a 1982 Cadillac. I'm just like, get in, boys! I got beer in the trunk.
Yep.
And that's what we did, dude.
Yep.
It's just what you do when you're young. You take care of one another, and then somewhere along the line, that's not cool anymore. Once you're at like 27, it's not cool to buy your bro a case of beer because he's a little down on his dollar or something like that. Like it's not cool to have struggles and
Yeah.
shit. And
It's
there's
not. It's not Instagram worthy. You know.
it's yeah, struggle is not sexy is the thing. And
Yeah.
the, in that clip, like in the last one we just watched, I think ultimately they're both right
Mhm.
at different stages in life.
Yeah, and like different scenarios. If it was a living wage,
And
different story.
I think it like his so in the old man's case, the older man's case, he was whatever.
Mhm.
The boomer's case,
Mhm.
he started work when 60s, whatever, 70s, something like that, 70s probably.
Yeah.
Uh, Bit of a recession there. He mentions in that video the recession of 88 and 89 and all that. And so he experienced it. So like, you know, he wasn't without his lumps, but he didn't enter the workforce against AI and against an entire generation who's also trying to get the same job you are.
Yeah.
And there's a going there's a narrative that like, you know, the young kids just want to be influencers and stuff. If you ask any like 9-year-old, they'll just say, "Oh, I want to be a YouTube star."
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you though? Like,
Yeah.
if that
It's a
is a
fun
viable
thing.
career option and swinging a hammer sucks and it doesn't pay worth a shit, why wouldn't you just go review shampoo?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Or play
it seems like
games on
kind
the
of a
off chance
no-brainer,
it takes off. Like.
but even that takes a shitload of hard work, as we're finding out now in this,
Yeah.
you know, YouTube venture that we're doing here. Like, this takes so much work.
Oh yeah.
Nothing comes easy that is worth having.
Yeah.
Nothing comes free that is worth having. So I think ultimately, like what I'm trying to say here is, ironically, their disloyalty to work,
Mhm.
or I'm sorry, their disloyalty to a job is actually coming off as disloyalty to work,
Yeah.
which has given Gen Z a work ethic that looks, on the surface level at least, a little subpar. I would argue there's a lot of them, at least in my experience in the factories, that don't know how to be productive. They kind of know how to be busy, but they don't really know how to be productive.
Yeah.
And so, at least in my experience, I can see a little bit of like guidance in that regard. And from what I've understood too, like that's a
Yeah.
lot. I've also been made to understand by people who again are not Gen Z, that essentially 10% of Gen Z holds 90% of the skill.
I could see it, but I also see those moments like teaching the kids how to fight, essentially. These kids picked up way faster than any other group I've ever worked with. And yeah, it took like some discipline moments and, you know, explaining how things work and explaining nuances in communication and stuff. But when they were respected, heard, and treated like humans, they fucking thrived. Like, dear God, they're going to be kicking my
So,
butt soon.
no, you actually just touched on a really good point there because when they were treated like humans, they thrived.
Yeah.
So why this stigma against Gen Z specifically? I'm not like I hate this Gen Z or this generational divide where
Yeah.
we're even talking about Gen X. And honestly, my least favorite generation is Gen X. I'm
Yeah.
not sugarcoating that. I never have. Gen X, on average, are the most entitled and kind of half-wit sons of bitches I've met, dude. Like a 51-year-old who just is grumpy and fucking and like they're putting a kid through college and all that. Like, yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe be a little happier at your kid's going to college or something.
Yeah, like, hey,
Like, why are you
congrats, you
such
can
a
afford
dick?
that.
Like, why do I owe you pleasantries?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I don't want to talk to you.
Oh, I had that moment with a lot of Gen Xers when I was training
Oh,
in a local training hall here, and I would, you know, come in and I'd be like, oh, you know, sorry, I'm a little late. They'd be like, haha, wife, huh? I'm like, No, work. Why?
Yeah, it's that 90s sitcom kind of humor too, which is
Yeah.
kind of campy and fun sometimes, but
Yeah, and there was a couple guys that like made it very clear that it was like jokes. You know, there's that productive
yeah.
joke of like, if you were
Like,
dumb enough to
oh,
mess
yeah,
up.
the wife really kept you up last night, huh? Just really
Yeah.
giving you the legit ribbon.
Yeah, exactly. Or like the positive stuff of like, well, you know, as long as you weren't an idiot, if you earned it, you earned it. And it's like, yeah, yeah. But there is a subset of them that were just so like, God, you know, it was a mistake ever getting married and all this stuff. I'm like, then divorce. Oh my God. Like, I would never
Yeah.
speak about my partner
It's
this way.
cheaper to keep her, and
Yeah.
I wonder if you wonder if there's tariffs on lawyer services. Like, is Interpol going to be tariffed?
I don't know. But fun fact, the US has more lawyers per capita than any other nation in the world.
There's a lawyer industrial complex, just like there's a prison industrial complex.
Well, and it's capitalized. You can make bank off of it. So people just specialized and created more and more things, and it's da, da, da. Meanwhile, if you look at another complex legal structure that's the opposite, is Japan. Japan has the fewest lawyers per capita because they would rather work it out person to person than have the disdain of admitting that they couldn't come to a conclusion.
You ever wonder why our tax laws are so complicated? It's lawyers and TurboTax lobbying
Yeah.
for complicated tax laws. That's the only reason we have complicated tax laws. And tax laws aren't the only ones. That's just the most obvious one and easiest
Yeah.
one to visualize. The only reason we don't have a free government portal to do our taxes, just like every other advanced
Yeah.
economy in the world, is because TurboTax and tax lawyers, well, and H&R Block and Jackson Hewitt, you get the
Yeah.
picture.
Corrupt
They all have
businesses.
lobbyists, which lobbyists, as we've covered before, but we will continually reiterate because it's
Mm-hmm.
important that everyone knows who their lobbyists are.
Yep. Legal bribery
The
officers.
lobbyists that go and bribe, literally sit down at dinner, slide them a $10,000 check, your senator, and say, hey, I am the former governor of Frankfort, Kentucky, whatever. I am paying you $10,000 to do my bidding. And they do it. That
Yep.
is your lobbyists. It's your former governors, it's your former mayors, it's
Yep.
former politicians, it's former aid workers and cabinet workers. Yeah.
These are the same. This is the same systemic problem that leads to all of the stuff that we talk about. It is people who don't respect other Americans because they would sooner accept that money and doom the other Americans because they got theirs. That's okay by capitalism. And like, I'm not
But
calling for anything alternative, but we could just have capitalism with guardrails. That'd be great. Because think about it. Same lobbyists
I'm
are the ones that prevent universal health care, gun laws.
I think Gen Z knows this too. Like they
Oh,
grew up with
God,
the
yeah.
internet. They grew up with the internet we have today. We grew up
Yeah.
with the dial-up internet. Like we grew up like we actually literally saw the dot-com days.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, sure, we were kids, literally third grade or something, but like
Still,
we were there for it.
I remember it being a big deal. My mom was like, "Check this out.
Big
Our
deal.
computer
I
can't
remember
stand
getting our
it."
computer. I remember the first computer we got. It had Windows 98 on it, and
Yeah.
I played a lot of Cat Dog on it.
We had
It was pretty fun.
CompuServe for our dial-up provider, and I will never forget that. I think the like beaten up old website is still out there. It's crazy.
I think that's what we had too, was CompuServe. We also had a, because on dial-up internet, for the Gen Zers who aren't watching, um, dial-up internet, when you were on the internet, no one could call, or
Yeah.
if they did call, it'd boot you off the internet, and that was really annoying.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So what they did is they had this thing called a call wave. It was a little plug-in for your
Yeah.
browser, and it was just a caller ID. So it just was like, hey, you're getting this call. And then you could hit accept, and it would disconnect you from the internet, and you could pick up the phone, and there you were, or you could just let it do a thing or hit ignore or whatever. And I don't know, man, that was pretty cool. Like technology was kind of peaked then. Now it's all homogenous. It's all fucking square. Everything in front of me is a goddamn square, dude.
Mm-hmm. I was watching again Andor. I was looking around at all of this of like, man, they're showing these beautiful architectures and all of this stuff, and I just love it. And the amazing part in it was just that we could do that. We could have these beautiful cities to wander around. We could have stunning architecture in every nook and cranny in the United States. We're the richest nation in the world. We need to act like it, but we don't. And it's so weird. And I do not blame Gen Z at all for any of this. Are they weird as all get out? Absolutely. Was I considered the weirdest bloody person in my conservative family? Absolutely. It's just how it works. The younger generations are going to be weird and different from what we grew up with because it's separated by literal decades. But they got the shit end of the stick. And what is it?
Not to
Gen
mention, they
Alpha?
were like juniors and seniors in high school during COVID.
Oh yeah, they got foobarred in all the spots. And then to top it all off, like you're not guaranteed anything good if you get a college education now. You're just guaranteed debt. So trades are great. That's why people are flocking to them. It's secure,
You know what?
it's stable.
Actually, another reason trades are becoming more appealing to young men, I think, is it's become pretty well known at this point that union jobs pay well. Union jobs
Yeah,
like what we mentioned earlier, linemen, boilermakers, what you have it.
yeah,
There's I don't want to call it a law, but there's a principle known as hypergamy in dating,
okay.
specifically with women. Women are going out and getting college degrees at twice the rate that men are.
Jesus,
They're
yeah,
also going out and earning something like 50% more than men on average. Women have this funny habit where they don't tend to date down societally. Men will date across the spectrum. We don't care. Women will date laterally and up.
yeah,
So something like 80% of the women eventually are going to have pick up 20% of the men. So if you happen to be part of that 20% of the men, cool though. But you're probably not. Unless you go out and get a cool trade where you're making six figures welding, or you're making six figures driving, or fixing power poles, or whatever.
yeah,
So I think that's actually going to have a little bit of a driver because like there's reports everywhere of like Gen Zs not having sex, like the average whatever like person of Gen Z age like goes like a year and a half without sex, something like that. Like these stats are kind of crazy, and I almost wonder. I don't know like how these surveys are pulled. I don't know how
right.
thorough they are, but they're pretty easy to find. And I almost wonder if the principle of hypergamy kind of plays a role in that because I'm not gonna lie, man, like
Oh,
35-year-old dudes and under, most of them just fucking play video games that I know, and they don't really do a whole hell of a lot outside of work.
yeah,
And they're not actively trying to get better in life to grow their career or anything like that.
yeah.
Good dudes, fun hangs, I got their backs, that kind of
Oh
thing,
yeah.
but this is just a fact. So I just have to wonder that, like, maybe the Gen Z young men are noticing that, reading that online because they're part of the demo that news niche is about.
Yeah.
So it's going to pop up in their feed, and they're like, "Oh man, maybe they're being made aware of it. Their consciousness is kind of elevating in that regard." And they're like, "Oh, if I make more money, I'll get laid more." Who fucking knew?
Oh, I mean, when all of our traditional goalposts for society have been stripped away from them, I get it. I also saw an article that kind of causation correlation potential here of apparently Gen Z and Gen Alpha are looking more and more to date older men because, to your point, they tend to be a little more like secure. They have a career of some kind, or at least they have multiple jobs and will keep a roof over a head, and they're more mature in general. Is the implication. Heavily so on the emotion side is what those polls were revealing of like you can have a full conversation with an older man, whereas the younger ones are a little harder to talk with. Now, with the crew that I run with for fighting and stuff, I don't see that. I see a lot of very emotionally aware young folk, but that's also like we kind of have like a lightning strike really good crew, so it could just be a fluke. I don't think it is though.
That's interesting because that's like trauma dating.
Yeah.
They're out there looking for the stability they don't think they can obtain on their own. Holy Jesus. So before 1972,
Mm-hmm.
women needed their husband's approval and signature to obtain a credit card.
Yeah.
Before birth control, women needed to marry and have kids in order to have a roof over their heads.
Yep.
we're coming back around now where the economy is bringing it back to pre-birth control era days where women now have to shack up with men to put a roof over their heads. Except now they have the caveat of having the right and the freedom to work.
Yeah. Well, and worse yet, there's a couple different ways to roll with that. I mean, one, there was an executive order that basically struck down the law for banks that prevented them from saying you have to be married in order to get a loan. Nothing's been done with that yet, to my knowledge, but that's an erosion of rights, and that's very concerning. That dials us back down to the 70s, doesn't it? But then also, on the point of like, Gen Z's very, very fluid with who they're attracted to compared to the older generations. If they need stability, there's the ability to find it in a partner, because that's a very common thing in society.
I mean, you have to be able to, you have to be able to trust them to provide stability and security too, though. And
Yep.
as we've just determined, that's exactly the thing they're all collectively looking for. I wonder if that search for stability, that open search for stability, is almost what makes them at least partially resentable. Like a lot of people just like, oh, Gen Z, fucking whatever. But that's unfair, right? That's an unfair characterization because these are people. These are people out there trying to make it the same as we did, the same as we are. It's not like it's not like we made it. Every single day is an attempt again to make it. And I don't think that sort of exponential thinking has been impressed upon them largely.
Yeah. No, there's a really interesting thread between all of our topics today that I think is a good one to highlight, and that it's essentially everything is connected. We have to consider like that we are part of a culture. We work with each other. So to these young men who are now statistically speaking, staying indoors, playing games, not really going out and doing things, not engaging in communities, well, one, there's not a lot of community stuff to do anymore.
No,
You have to go
not,
make
because it's all on your phone.
Exactly. You have to go make it. It's way easier to start a group of friendships online because you can just access anything. You can change topic, what you're doing. It changes a lot. But there's this us versus them mentality that is so everywhere right now. Gen Z versus Gen X versus the millennials versus the boom. Us versus them. Red versus blue. Illegal versus legal. All of this stuff is so destructive, so against each other, that it's creating all of these old systemic problems that apparently just makes fascism want to pop up real quick. Because suddenly we're having erosion of rights. I mean, citizens are being deported. Gen Zs and Gen Alphas are among the people being deported randomly. And that's BS.
I was going to just go off into a short little rant and then sort of just mellow it down and end it there. But I actually have a better way to end this. So I learned something recently. You brought up they're shipping out immigrants and stuff, and it made me think of this. Important to relay. Auschwitz was in Poland, not in Germany.
Yep.
Just think about that for a moment. Think about why.
Yep.
Think about why Auschwitz was in Poland and not in Germany. Now, think about why this prison that they're sending these immigrants to, whether immigrants or not, why are these prisons in El Salvador and Venezuela and not here?
And why did our president make it so that U.S. citizens can be deported? Spoiler alert.
These are concentration camps, people.
Yeah, you can't deport someone from their home nation. But all of this it's all so confrontational, and I think as a society, we gotta start looking beyond that and just working together. And that starts with us acknowledging steel worker and tech worker can get along. Fast food worker and a middle manager can get along. But we all have to start treating and teaching each other with respect. Been a week, man.
Yeah, that's probably a good time to just mosey on out, huh?
Just as I just verbally crash the plane.
That's right. That's right. You know, that's all the signage we need, man. That's all the signage we need.
Oh god.
And in the pursuit of a living, don't forget to live a life.
Right? Little things. Actually have fun. Lots of people aren't gonna let you. Make it
Yeah.
yours.
If you can't afford to save a little bit, you can probably afford to have a little bit of fun
Mhm,
for a little bit.
mhm, mhm. All right.
Thanks for joining us, folks.
Unionize.